I am Jen Hawkins.
And I am Andy Fenn.
And this is
the Jen FM podcast. Today's an exciting one.
This is a good one. We've been looking forward to this one for a while because, like you said before, I think in our previous episode, this is a series. Universally, I think we're more or less on the same page with.
Pretty much.
It's a franchise I think that you and I share in terms of we both have a reverence for it, if that makes sense, that I think is equal. Differently in some places.
So, yeah.
But in terms of one that we share, I think it's probably...
In terms of like franchises that really mean something and kind of have a place in our hearts, this is the one.
I think it is the major one, isn't it? This is the PlayStation 1 starting franchise.
Yeah.
So I would say your formative, the games that changed gaming for me in terms of what gaming was capable of, and it picked it up from being those fun platforming scrollers like Sonic, and then made that jump, narratively speaking, in terms of your visuals, the narrative, everything. They became small films, didn't they?
Yeah.
You were playing small films. Another one for me would be Metal Gear, which is not one for you, but then Silent Hill we kind of share as well, but then I think this is the major one.
This is the one. This is the one, yeah, absolutely. So we are discussing the Resident Evil franchise.
We are.
And what we're going to do is we've both scored them. Mm-hmm. So from worst to best, we've scored them and then added our scores together to come up with like a definitive Jen and Fen ranking. Mm-hmm. So there are some actually that will probably appear lower than expected for us and for listeners.
Yep.
Because we don't agree on everything. And we also don't necessarily agree with the general consensus on a lot of the Resident Evil games, particularly the more recent ones.
But it is interesting. I'm quite confident that our favourite and least favourite are the same.
I think
the variation is in between there. And I think it's in the middle. I think the middle section of the list is where you and me differed.
Yeah.
I think we're kind of on the same page, and then all of a sudden I've thrown it out the window.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Even while we were putting this together, you were a bit like, really?
Are you sure?
Are you sure? Yeah. So I don't think mine's quite as concrete as yours, but I think overall, we've come up with a good list.
Yeah. So we've actually got the list here on a piece of paper, and I've folded it very surreptitiously because I kind of saw it before I printed it out, but not really. I saw the top one and the bottom one, and they were not a surprise.
No, not at all.
Everything in the middle, I'm not quite 100% sure where it is.
I think we'll be reading it going, are you sure?
We're going to unfold it bit by bit so we can...
And it's also worth saying we are just doing the mainline entries.
Just the mainline entries. We are doing remakes and OG.
Yes.
But sticking to the mainline entries. So we've got 13 games to get through. I think it's probably going to be a two-parter. But yeah, should we get stuck in?
We should. So we have to unveil the list.
And the world was shook, said no one. 13th place with 2 points.
This is like Eurovision, isn't it?
It's exactly what it is. Nil point.
Exactly nil point.
For Resident Evil 6.
Oh, Resident Evil 6.
Oh, dear.
Resident Evil 6 is an interesting one, purely because, as much as we really didn't like it...
We actually had a good time.
We had a lot of fun playing it.
We did.
For a while.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's one of those things I went back to it about a year or so ago, because I was like, it can't be as bad as I remember it being.
And it
was actually worse.
Yeah.
It's shite.
It's really bad.
It's utter shite. Like, I can't think of a single redeeming quality in that game at all.
No.
The Mercenaries mode was probably what we played the most, but that's what we got hooked on in 5.
Yeah. And it wasn't as good. It wasn't a patch on 5's Mercenaries mode.
It wasn't.
So it didn't last for us, really. I mean, Resident Evil 6, it was a bloated mess of a game.
I've always summed Resident Evil 6 up with the following statement, which is when you try to do something for everybody, you do something for nobody.
No one. It's jack of all trades and the master of none.
Yeah, I think it's an example of something that I think Village did better. Because it tries to take a snapshot of every big point of the series.
That kind of greatest hits mentality, yeah.
And Village does it really well, I think, for its faults. Like I think that's a matter of personal opinion in terms of which we'll discuss some of the games in this list. But you've got kind of the horror-leaning element, which is what appealed to us in the promo, was it kind of teased an almost RE2 quality in Leon's campaign, didn't it?
It did. Which was really kind of the only campaign we really saw of the three.
Which I suspect was deliberate, because
I agree.
The rest of the Chris and Piers Nivens one is dreadful. It's like a really bad Gears of War clone, isn't it? It's a ugly grey, green,
brown
mess.
Yeah.
It's a brown mess. It's not good. And the characters are just not good.
No.
I personally just really didn't like Chris Redfield in these later entries. I just thought he was a completely bland...
He's just a steroid bro, really.
He is. It's not this to me. It's not the same Chris that's in Resident Evil and in Code Veronica. It's almost like it's an alternative. You know, like when you get comic book franchises and you've got like Batman.
Yeah,
you've got several different versions of Batman with several different story timelines. That's kind of how Resident Evil feels to me during this period.
Yeah,
it just goes off on this weird wormhole tangent,
seesawing tangent.
Strange, like
very bizarre.
It's kind of like a through the looking glass version of every character in the franchise. I think the only character that doesn't suffer for this is Jill Valentine for the brief period that she's in RE5.
But that's because she's been underused.
Yes, and that's exactly the reason, because she's not in it enough.
And Claire, to a certain extent as well. Claire's had a bit more time in the sun recently with the remake and Revelations 2. But the female characters are definitely sidelined, I feel.
I didn't realise until later, because I didn't really watch these films, and I still don't think they're very good. There seemed to be a lot of crossover with those CGI Resident Evil films and this period of the franchise as well, because the version of Claire that's in those films is the version of Claire that's in Revelations 2. It's the version of Leon that's post RE4, that's farting around in the background, and it's the roid rage Chris Redfield. It's a really... almost cinematic kind of Hollywood version of everybody.
Yeah.
While being really B grade at the same time.
Yeah.
It's quite an odd one. But it was a necessary point, again, because this is another point I'll mention with RE4. It was a necessary turning point because it basically slammed the handbrake on the franchise and made them think,
this is not working.
We've done something really wrong here.
I mean, it's sold bucket loads.
Well, it did, and that's the thing.
It was like the quickest selling.
I still think it's actually one of
the quickest selling
one in the
ever.
whole lot. Yeah, and it's
but that's almost worse though, because when so many people have bought it expecting it to be good, and it isn't. But
it also explains what basically happened, which was the total shutdown of the franchise, and it went into hibernation until Biohazard came out, which was RE7,
which was completely different.
Yeah, and it was a shift. It was something, I think, again, kind of like what happens with 4, and we'll go, it has to happen to keep the franchise alive.
Yeah,
but this could have been the death knell.
It could have.
And I think with another company, it might well have just been, right, this is done now.
That's the thing. For all its faults...
Well, kind of like what Konami did with Silent Hill.
Exactly that.
It's that pivotal point where Konami decided, fuck it, we're not doing this anymore. Yeah. And Capcom kind of just, right, okay, we'll batten the hatch down.
Yeah. And that's the thing, for all its faults, at least technically, it was semi-decent.
It was, but the thing that got me about it when I went back to it is how poor the controls are in those games. They're terrible. They're genuinely awful. Yeah. Even navigating a menu in RE6 is a pain in the arse.
Yeah, and just weird things, like there was that weird dodge mechanic, wasn't there? But it wasn't really a dodge. It was more like you just fling yourself on the floor for no reason. It was very strange. It was really odd.
It was almost a bit like in Souls games to dodge attacks, but it was just weird.
So. It wasn't really a roll. It was just like, I'm shooting you. Oh, you're going to attack me.
Surprise!
So I'm just going to fall over onto the floor.
I'm going to play dead in the corner.
And I'm going to continue to shoot you from the floor, which is not a position I want to be in.
But then you have to get up again, which is you're right, actually. I remember it's a very weird thing. I think it was supposed to look, it was almost like a Max Payne bullet dodge.
But
they didn't put the bullet time in. And instead of giving him
I've just fallen down.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Instead of getting straight back up again, it's entirely possible, I think, to just lie on the floor. You just lie on
the floor. I'm good. I'm good down here.
And from a strategic standpoint,
it's a really bad idea.
Yeah, once the zombies get you to the floor, that's universally Goodnight Vienna, isn't it? You don't want to be on the floor.
It had some decent moments. One standout moment that I really, really enjoyed from the game was we played it in co-op.
We did.
We must have had a week off work or something, because we both
did, because we played it on launch.
We just played it solidly.
We bought it together, and we went. I remember us going to the store to buy it together, and then we went home, logged on, and we played it.
And we were there for must have been a few days at least. But we did the Chris campaign first. I don't know why we chose to do it like that. I think it was because we were very aware from the reviews and what we'd seen that the Leon campaign was the best.
Yeah, so I think we wanted to get the worst.
Save the best till last kind of thing. So we did the Chris campaign first. And it really did change the way the narrative played out, because we're going to get into spoiler territory here, but if you haven't played these games by now, you're not going to.
No.
But we had that bizarre storyline where Ada Wong was the antagonist, but then it turned out to be a clone.
It was very weird. It was I'm trying to think what it reminds me of. Cloning was a weird thing that happened in this franchise about this point, because
they made a really they really went to town with it, didn't they?
It's fucking weird. Like, it's just the whole idea, and it's all kind of springs from Albert Wesker, doesn't it? Because Wesker has a son in this entry.
Yeah.
Which is just okay, right? Fair enough. But I mean, was he even was he like a test tube child?
I'm not clear on, because there's all these Wesker children, but they're not really his children, are they?
That's the thing, because this shitty Netflix series is taking that turn as well, which I've got no interest. I will watch it, of course, but I actually have no interest in it whatsoever.
But this is the thing, that playing that campaign first reframed that entire storyline.
And he has a sister as well, doesn't he?
Who does?
Wesker.
Yeah, but she's quite good. She's quite good. Is
she a clone as well, though?
Probably.
Yeah, it all goes a bit strange. Yeah, sorry, you were saying.
Yeah, so there's this point in Chris's campaign where you see Ada Wong die. Do you remember when you confront her on the helipad?
Yeah, doesn't she get shot?
And then a helicopter appears and a sniper shoots her and kills her.
Yeah.
And at that point, we don't know that she's a clone because we hadn't played the Leon campaign.
No, but we were all just like, oh, shit.
I was like, fuck, they just killed off Ada Wong.
They just killed off Ada Wong. Like, I remember being sat and we were on a headset together and we went, oh, that was bold.
And that was so much more of a moment, because if you play the Leon campaign first, it's revealed within that storyline.
Actually is she? Because doesn't the clone character have her own name?
Carla,
that's it. I mean,
she was made by, what's his name? Simmons, who is like the main antagonist of Leon's bit.
Yeah.
And he basically just wanted a sex doll version of Ada, I think.
That's pretty much
he was obsessed with her, and he just wanted to clone her so he could... The real Ada Wong wasn't interested in him romantically.
Yeah, I mean, let's be real, Ada is gorgeous. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, it's not...
She's one of my favourite characters in the whole franchise.
She's got no business cutting around with Leon, really, but, you know, it's a...
And I remember actually when we started playing it, how it didn't quite sit right with me that she was suddenly like this... pure antagonist, because she's always been very morally grey.
Well, that's the thing. She's morally grey. She's a mercenary, isn't she?
She's always been self-serving, but she's never been like flat out horrid.
No.
And she was literally like killing people for no reason.
That's the thing, and that's why I think this game does deserve the honour of being the bottom, because it kind of cocks its leg and pisses on everything that's come before it.
Yeah. Because it's like, I know she's a clone, and that's what the twist is. That it's the clone that's doing all these horrible things, not the real Ada.
Yeah.
But you have to get to a certain point in the game to actually find that out.
It does. And that's the thing. It just, to me, it's a mess of a game for so many reasons, but it just ultimately achieves nothing.
Yeah.
These characters don't change.
No.
There's nothing, there's no definitive beginning, middle, and end with any of these characters. Like, it's just kind of like, well, that happened.
Yeah. And the thing that really annoys me with it as well is that they kind of shoehorned these D-list characters in just to make co-op happen.
Agreed. But I think the one thing I was really disappointed with, which I think could have been really interesting, was the reintroduction of Sherry Birkin.
Yeah. I actually quite liked her character.
I agreed. I liked that, because the idea is that she's got the G antibodies. Yeah. So it's the idea is that something she's immune to the virus, and hasn't it also enhanced her in some way? Is that a thing?
I think so, but it's more her healing, isn't it?
Yes, that's it. There's something.
She gets injured and then she heals.
She heals very quickly. Yeah, that character. It's interesting. Like, that's a character I would have wanted to have seen more from.
But their campaign is mostly about Jake.
It is. Who is just arguably one of the most uninteresting characters this franchise has ever just introduced. It's a discount Albert Wesker, because we can't really get away with bringing him back again.
Exactly.
The character is a really dull, boring, brooding, just nothing character. And he just sulks the whole game.
That's very much the game in a nutshell, isn't it? It's just bland and dull and boring.
Yeah, it is. It's something,
too long. It's far too long.
A mess. I don't know what they were thinking of when they made this game. I really don't. I don't know who they thought it was for. Or, like I said, they tried to appeal to too many people and it fell flat on its face. And it deserves its reputation as the worst game in the franchise by quite some margin, I think.
But enough about that.
Yes. Moving on to the next one. What is next?
I actually have no idea.
I'm excited.
Are you
we
ready?
should have done this like an advent calendar. We should have a door to open it.
It is... Wow.
Okay, right.
Resident Evil 7.
Are we both on the same page with this?
Similar.
Okay.
You scored it a 2 and I scored it a 4.
Okay.
So it was definitely down the bottom of the pile.
Yeah.
But I'm surprised it's that low.
I'm kind of surprised it's that low, and this is something I feel like I should caveat straight, we should have started with at the beginning. I don't think, with the exception of RE6, that any of these games are objectively bad. No. There are just some that I just don't like.
Yeah.
And it's not because they're bad games.
Well, not even that we necessarily don't like them, is that we just enjoy them less.
This is one of them.
Others.
This is one of them. This was the big comeback for Resident Evil. And this is a weird one. I think this is why I think it's low for me. It's objectively a good game to play. The first half of it, it suffers from game of two halves again, like most of these later entries do. The first half of Resident Evil 7 is a really good horror game.
Yeah.
I think it's just a bad Resident Evil game.
Yeah.
And I didn't enjoy
it was such an about face in terms of gameplay as well. You know, I don't mind a first person perspective, but it just doesn't feel like a Resident Evil.
No, I agree. I still can't get on board with the whole first person perspective thing 100%, to be honest. It doesn't. I found it less of an issue in Village, but I think that's because I actually enjoyed Village more than this one.
Yeah.
And Village's strength is in the villains of the piece.
That's it.
And I think that's the problem with 7 for me. I don't like any of the characters in this game. I can't think of a single character in this game.
In terms of protagonists, do you mean?
Well, even the villains I don't really like.
Really?
I just find everybody in it so thoroughly uninteresting. And
I quite like the Baker family.
Well, I liked Zoe Baker. I thought Zoe Baker was one of the more interesting characters in it.
I suppose they're not really developed, are they? They're just gross people.
Well, you get that kind of snippet at the end, don't you, where you're speaking to the real them in the mold or whatever it is, don't you? Which is, that's the thing that happened. And, again, you're like, oh, these are really quite decent people that have, gone through some shit.
Yeah.
The son who's a deviant is an interesting character, but again, I don't really feel like that had any business being in a Resident Evil game. It felt like a mini Saw-ish,
wasn't it? Yeah.
But then those kind of films were all the rage at that time, and it's a weird one because it obviously took a lot of lead from the popularity of games like Outlast.
Yeah,
it wears that on its sleeve. The first person perspective and the being chased.
Yeah.
It's 100% taken from Outlast, which I didn't hate, but equally I'm like, it's not for me either.
I don't think Outlast was like a genre-defining thing where it's like it should be inspiring a franchise like Resident Evil.
No, it wasn't, and that's the thing. It was a clickbait version. It's a clickbait game because it exists for people to make snapshots of 30 seconds of them shitting their pants when something comes around a corner.
Or like an enemy coming towards you with its dick swinging.
Precisely that. It's a game that Outlast is too long. The concept outstays its welcome. It exists just for those
to be inflammatory.
Those sound bites. Yeah, it had no business being an inspiration for a game with so much prestige. With a franchise with this much prestige. It was a bit like, okay. It kind of feels a bit like, when Madonna did that period where she was trying to be like a lot of other less impressive.
Trying to be like Britney and Gaga.
Yeah, and you're just you don't have to do this, you're Madonna. It's kind of, that's what it is for me with Resident Evil 7. It's like, you're Madonna. Just do your thing.
You're the mother of God. Look it.
Yeah, literally that. I'm like, you don't have to copy anyone else. I think that's the real sin for me and this is a problem with Village as well, is I just do not like the protagonist of Resident Evil 7. I know Ethan's supposed to be bland and boring in 7. I know they tried to give him more character in 8. It didn't work for me, and I fucking hate Mia Winters.
She's horrendous.
Just a terrible character. They're not good characters.
No,
that's the thing.
That's the thing. A garbage person can still be a good character.
Agreed.
They can still be compelling to watch, but she's just vile.
And I remember the first time I played the game, I sided with Zoe Baker with the vaccine.
100%. Absolutely.
And everyone was like, how could you do that? It was your wife. And I was like, if I were Ethan, that ring would have been in the creek at the beginning of the game. Like, I'd have given Zoe Baker the vaccine.
Well, you wouldn't have gone there in the first place.
Taken the ring off and tossed it in the sea.
You wouldn't have gone there to find her in the first place.
No, it would have been a good get out of jail free card.
Absolutely.
Cash in her pension with Umbrella. You'd be,
yeah, she's horrendous.
Yeah, and I think that some of the DLC that exists for the game is interesting.
It's very weird, isn't it? Like the birthday party one is
very strange.
Batshit insane.
And then there's one where you're playing poker, which was pretty good.
I like that they did like a couple of little experimental bits with it, but it just...
And there was one where you had to rescue Zoe Baker, wasn't there?
Yeah.
You were playing the girls.
That was like the only one that was... there was the one with Chris.
Which I didn't like. No. I didn't like that one.
Because they just, again, tried to turn it into a Gears of War, Call of Duty kind of situation.
Agreed, yeah.
It just didn't work. But yeah, it just didn't really do it. I know it's meant to be like everyone. It's regarded as
it's a soft reboot, isn't it? And people love this game.
People love it.
They really do. And
it's really highly regarded.
Kind of jealous how much people love this game because I remember buying it and really wanting to love it. And that's the thing, when I played it, I liked it.
Me too.
But I only played it once or twice.
Me too.
And then I didn't touch it again.
It just didn't have
years.
It didn't have that replayability that the old ones have had.
To me, it was just lacking the charm of, and this is the thing. I know. As I'm saying this, that people will say to me, "Well, if you had anything to do with it, the franchise probably would have stalled with Code Veronica."
Yeah,
and they're absolutely correct.
Yeah,
but equally, I'm like, you've got to remember what brought us to this franchise in the first place.
Yeah.
There's a reason why the games that will be on the higher end of this list will be so regarded. I mean, again, this is another necessary evolution to keep the franchise alive, and I think it, on its own 2 feet, the first half of it is a really good horror game. The second half of the game is awful.
Yeah,
I really, truly hate that game. Once you get onto that container ship,
completely.
And then you start to see more. And that's the other thing, is the girl who is the embodiment of the mold.
Evelyn.
Awful villain.
Yeah, I think they tried to kind of make it like an Alma from Fear kind of situation, didn't
and
they?
it didn't work.
It didn't play out like
Children in video games are a very hard thing to get right, and they got this.
And if you
wrong.
nail it, it's scary as fuck.
Well, it's not even. It's just even if they're not an antagonist. Children in general, snotty kids are the worst.
Yeah,
the absolute worst. And I think this franchise has some examples of that done appallingly,
but then also done really well. Sometimes the same character. We'll get onto that later.
Agreed, yeah. So yeah, as I say, 7. Yeah, I think it's low, but I think it's, for me.
We can see that we should like it, but we don't.
Yeah, it's just it's not a good Resident Evil game to me, and I personally didn't like the direction they took the franchise with this. I don't like the characters. I don't really like some of the. I would like to see the next one if they're going to do it. I want to see what they'll do with Jill Valentine. That would be the only thing I think now that would keep me interested in future installments fully.
Yeah,
if they're
and that's the thing. It's like what we were talking about. We discuss things often, and it's like, well, if you just don't like it, if it's just not for you, then just don't play it. But it's like, this is such a pivotal, important franchise to us that it's
these are event games.
We can't just like pass it up. We have to get them and try them.
Well, that was the thing. I mean, we'll come on to that with Village, but I very nearly didn't buy Village because of how much I didn't like 7.
No, you were not featuring Village at all.
No, and that's it. And I picked it up on release, and actually, I love Village compared to this one. I think Village is better, much better than RE7.
I agree.
Which again is a controversial opinion. A lot of people didn't like Village.
That's it. A lot of people that liked 7
better.
Didn't like Village, but we don't know what to tell you.
Well, just hot takes.
Hot takes.
Real takes.
From beginning to end. Speaking of which, shall we go for the next one?
What is the next one on the list?
Okay. So now, if you'd told me this 5-10 years or whenever it came out, that this would be so low down, I would not have believed you.
Is it 5?
It's Resident Evil 5.
See, now that surprises me. Well, actually, this is another one that comes with its own
with a caveat. Yeah.
This game is one I genuinely love to play in co-op, and my fondness for it is purely because of the co-op experience and how much fun you and me had playing this in Mercenaries mode.
Yeah.
The hours. We even ended up in like a top 10%.
We did.
Globally.
We ended up on like a global leaderboard.
We did for a while. We played this game to the threads.
Yeah.
Because this is one of the first ones. We played it on PS3 together.
PS3, yeah.
And then I picked up another copy on when I got my Xbox. And that's when I think we played it again.
Yeah.
So I think we went through 2 phases with this.
Yeah.
I remember it was very, very early in yours and my friendship. We spent an entire Sunday playing Mercenaries, trying to beat high scores.
Yeah.
I vividly remember and thinking, this is incredible, this is great.
And that's the thing, at the time, it was a blast. And it's weird to say that because I know for a fact, without even looking at this list, that like the original games on PS1 are going to be top half. Whereas we're looking at it, how much we loved them years ago and how much we still love them. 5 is a weird one because we loved it when we first played it, and now we think it's garbage.
Well, I mean, to be honest, I wouldn't even go as far as to say I think it's garbage. I played it again in co-op last year, and it's still at the controls have aged very badly. That's one thing I will say, is it's technically not fun to play. But I could still see why we loved it so much when we played it.
I've lost that completely. I can't imagine why I liked it so much when
like I said, I think it's purely down to the co-op. Because playing it on my own, I didn't enjoy it as much.
No.
It was that having the companion and just the fun that I think you and me brought to it.
Yeah, because and I have very fond memories of that.
I mean, we added our own, not flair to it, but we had a lot of fun with this game because we were going through the game acknowledging how stupid and how
that's the thing. That's the thing. There's like certain cutscene moments.
We added the Cagney and Lacey theme tune to one of them.
We did.
And I don't know why we did that, but it was fucking funny.
It was the Ouroboros reveal, wasn't it?
And that's what I mean, but we brought our own fun to it. And that's what I mean. I think we made that experience what it was.
And that
just
kind
how
of
much fun we had.
That mentality definitely spilled over into 6 as well.
Yes.
Where it was just like, just how shit it actually was, really. But we made fun of it.
We were rolling with the punches by that point because we were like, this is dog shit. Like, we were like sitting through this and it's like, okay, this is happening.
Yeah.
All right.
The key difference for me between 5 and 6, though, is that we actually thought 5 was quite good at the time.
Yeah.
And then in recent years, we kind of look back at it and it's less fond. Whereas with 6, we knew that was shit from the go.
Well, I'll drop the bombshell and say that I would rather play 5 than 4.
Really?
Mm-hmm. If it was in co-op, I'd rather play 5 than 4. If you and me were going to sit down and play 4.
What about if you were treating them purely as a solo experience?
Probably 4, but even then, I'm not keen on it. We'll get to that.
We'll get onto that.
We'll get onto that one.
That's one we actually differ on, I think.
That is when we differ on quite dramatically, and it's one of those ones where I annoy myself with my own opinion.
Yeah,
because I've tried so hard
to get into that
game, and I just can't do it.
No, that's fair.
So I suppose, 5.
5. It's just, again, it's weird because I love it so much.
It was a moment in time.
It was a product of its time, I feel.
I think the reason it's fond, it sticks out so fondly to me was just because I think that was how you and me became such good friends.
Yeah.
It was a bonding experience. We brought a lot of our own fun to that game. Like I said, we acknowledged how utterly ridiculous the game was and how stupid it was. Like the funniest thing I always remember is that cutscene when you're on that lift.
I know what you're going to say.
And that body just falls out of a vent and it's total silence.
It's just such a random camp moment.
It's like a big it's a tube, isn't it, with a body in it, and the body just falls out.
Yeah, that's it. There's all these canisters, isn't there?
The bodies in them,
and one just randomly opens, and the body just falls out for no reason.
And then it does this close up of Sheva just going, oh. It's literally just that she just
I can see it
for no reason. It doesn't affect the story. It doesn't even get mentioned. It's just Sheva going.
They just move on.
That's what I mean. There's no reason for that moment to be in the game. It doesn't do. And you and me,
we were
barely laughed. We
were on the source at that point.
Inconsolable with laughter when that was happening because it was just
occurred at such a moment where we were obviously just taking leave of our senses. I
think we were sat in your living room. We were doing it split screen. We were very drunk. And I just remember thinking that served no narrative purpose whatsoever, and the face of the character was priceless. That was funny.
It was unintentionally camp.
That was comedy gold.
Yeah.
That was really one of the most unintentionally funny moments in any game ever, I think.
But it's really the only good thing I can think about the entire story. I think, to be honest, 90% of the fondness I have, which is not a lot, is Mercenaries. And particularly the Mercenaries Reunion mode that came
100%.
out. And the DLC was actually quite good as well.
Yeah,
the Lost in Nightmares DLC.
The Lost in Nightmares DLC was good. That was good.
I think that's where anything good I feel about it.
I remember you and me rushing home from work to play that DLC.
Obsessed.
Because we were downloading it during the day when we were at work.
And it lent so much towards the original Resident Evil game.
Well, it's Chris and Jill, isn't it? So we were just like, yes.
Obsessed.
But yeah, that's the Mercenaries mode on that game, I think, is
champagne.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
It was
brilliant.
So much fun.
Yeah.
So much fun. We just spent untold amount of hours on there. And so I mean, a lot of that for me is just, it was a moment in time.
Yeah. It was a fun co-op experience, but the campaign, for all intents and purposes, is absolute garbage for me.
The villains in that are ridiculous. Yeah. I mean, that Excella character is pricelessly funny.
She's brilliant.
It's like something out of Dynasty.
She's fantastic.
It is Jackie Collins. Is it Jackie Collins or Joan Collins?
Joan Collins.
Collins. It's basically like if you cast Joan Collins in Resident Evil.
Yeah.
It's the most ridiculous.
Absolutely that.
It's almost like Eurotrash, isn't it?
Yeah. There's not enough tit tape in the world.
Yeah.
To keep her bosom in that dress.
Absolutely none whatsoever. Every villain in that game is some sort of camp, weird European, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is like watching Eurotrash.
Yeah.
Jean-Paul Gaultier could pop up in shot and it wouldn't be out of place in Resident Evil 5.
No. It's just camp.
And Lola Ferrari could be a fucking villain in that story. In fact, Excella, I mean...
she's halfway there.
She's halfway there. You literally could have got the cast of Eurotrash in that game and it would work.
Yeah.
I kind of would love that game, you know. I'm not going to lie. I kickstart that project. Can someone please do it? I want a ridiculously camp Resident Evil game that's like a boob comedy.
Yeah, like Boobarella.
Boobarella. Yeah.
Boobarella. That's quite difficult for you to say.
Say that again.
No. Anyway.
So, yeah, I think we'll put a bow on that one. But I think that one's a weird one because while it is awful, it was a bonding experience for us, and I think it was a snapshot in time. I think that's why I have such fond memories.
Yeah. So the next one, the big reveal, is the Resident Evil 3 remake.
See, now I thought that would be lower.
See, now we've differed on that. My score for that is higher than yours. Yeah. But I know that you felt some type of way about this game for multiple reasons.
Really, the thing I find unforgivable about this game is that it's not awful. It's just
not what it could have been.
Undercooked.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I have such contempt for this game, because it was a rush job. Nobody wanted another game a year after RE2 dropped.
No. They could have taken another 6 to 12 months.
It should have dropped
least.
Like now.
Yeah.
Years down the line.
Yeah.
With more polish.
More content.
A bigger development team.
Yeah.
Because it came out later that it was farmed out to some sort of
It was clearly done on a shoestring.
Yeah. Well, they clearly had some sort of access to the RE2 build.
Yeah.
And then somehow managed to make a worse version of it, which I don't understand.
No.
It's just a tragic waste of everything that it tried. I think it universally fails at everything it tries to do.
Yeah, and the thing is, on the face of it, as a game, it's competent. It's decently fun to play. I think the egregious thing is that the source material is so much better.
Yeah,
and it could have been so much more.
For me, because RE2 was still so fresh.
Yeah.
An RE2 remake is a gem.
Extraordinary.
It is the
gold standard.
Absolute.
Not perfect.
No. But I think it's a modern horror masterpiece. I would go as far to say that. It's a brilliant game.
Yeah.
So then to follow it on a year later, expecting that level of quality and not unreasonably.
No, that was what we and we're not being entitled. We're not saying that we want X, Y, and Z. No. It just should have been better.
It just should have basically come out 3 years later.
Yeah. With all the content
full
and also
cycle,
the way they chose to reimagine the content that they did reimagine, just wasn't up to scratch.
No, it wasn't. As I said, I think the thing that gets me with it is the combat was changed, which I kind of understand, but it somehow made what was a really polished experience into a
just feel
clunky
clunky.
mess.
Yeah,
like you couldn't stun enemies with headshots like you could in 2.
Yeah,
but you just had this crap dodge roll mechanic that didn't work.
And that was clearly a throwback to the original Resident Evil 3. The dodge mechanic was crap in Resident Evil 3 as well.
So it's like you can't put ironic crap in. Like don't make the game deliberately shit. Just everything about it's undercooked. When you look at, I know that once you've played RE2 to death the way I have, you know that Mr. X's patterns are somewhat there is a pattern. But that first time that you play that game, the first few times, being stalked by Mr. X is fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
He can come through the wall.
Yeah.
He follows you down short corridors. It's genuinely terrifying. They somehow managed to take Nemesis and make him feel very unthreatening because he was very clearly on rails all the time.
It was one extreme to the other. He was either completely unthreatening or he was just an irritant.
He was never frightening. That's the problem, and that's the unforgivable sin.
Not frightening, or he was annoying.
Pain in the arse. Yeah.
He was a pain in the ass.
He's a pain in the arse. Yeah.
I just didn't get how they got him so wrong.
I don't understand how they got him so wrong, which is, again, that there's no excuse for this game to somehow be worse than RE2. It's so strange. Like, it needed a couple of years. What it needed was a couple of years of development, and it needed a big step back so that the team could go, right, that worked really well in 2. We'll bring this over here.
Yeah.
We'll bring that over here. That perhaps doesn't suit this game so much, so we won't do that. It just felt like they basically created a really cheap piece of DLC for RE2.
Exactly that.
And that, I think, is actually what it should have been. And I would have been a lot more forgiving of it if it had been like a £15 expansion for RE2.
Yeah. It absolutely should not have been a full price game.
No, it shouldn't have been. It was too short. It was sorely lacking in content. And it was just... the fact of the matter is that they gutted large chunks of the original game out of this is just bizarre. And that's what, to me, suggests it was rushed.
Yeah.
Because there's just huge chunks, like there's the clock tower's missing.
The clock tower's gone, the park is gone. The Dead Factory is basically, they turned it into the lab from the end of the film.
Yeah.
Which was not what
it was at all. This is the thing, actually, that speaks to how cheap and shit this game is for me. The free DLC that you got with RE2, which was the Soul Survivor... What was it
Ghost
called?
Survivors.
Ghost Survivors. There is one where they've got these pale head enemies, which are designed to be egregiously annoying.
Just annoying.
And they've been added to the game to basically fuck with speedrunners. That's what they're there for. They're awful enemies by design. They're deliberately supposed to be there to be obnoxious and troll-like. They took those enemies and put them in RE3.
For no reason. They weren't in the original.
No.
But they obviously looked at the enemies in Ghost Survivors and thought, wow,
there's just so many recycled assets in this game that somehow just manages to do a worse job.
And that's the weird thing, because the original Resident Evil 3 also recycled so much from 2. The original 2.
But it did it really well.
It was so exciting to go back to the police station and kind of see it.
From another perspective.
Because, for the uninitiated, Resident Evil 3 takes place in the 24 hours before and after Resident Evil 2.
Well, it's the parallel story, isn't it, effectively?
So you visit the police station. I was going to say you visit the police station before Leon and Claire arrive there.
Yes.
So there's still barricades up. The zombies haven't quite got through.
But that was what I was looking forward to, is like seeing the police station from a whole other perspective, seeing other survivors at the police station. Yeah. Like, we wanted to see what.
But there was none of that.
But there was none of that. I would like to have seen what Marvin was doing that whole time. I would like to have seen what Officer Elliot was doing that whole time.
Yeah.
See whether Brian Irons was still cutting around at that time. There was so much potential there for things that the original game didn't quite have the ambition. It had the ambition, but didn't have the
prowess.
To actually do that. This game felt like it should have had done a lot of those things. And
That's
it just
the thing.
didn't. It was so...
It's kind of unbelievable that you can take a game from, 1999 and then remake it in 2020 and it be so diluted.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Make any sense.
It just feels like very, very rushed, cheap DLC.
I still I enjoy it to a degree. I don't hate it as much as you do, but I can see entirely where you're coming from.
Yeah. For me, like I said, it was just such a downgrade from what had been released with RE2.
Yeah.
And like I said, nobody wanted a game that quickly.
If they'd done 3 first and then done 2 after, not that would have made any sense to do it like that. But if we'd had 3 first, that could have been quite different.
In terms of it being done well?
In terms of going upwards in quality.
Yeah.
If 3 was like, oh, it's not that good, but, it's fine. And then 2 had blown us away.
3 is kind of what I was worried RE2 remake was going to be. Yeah. Because everybody was a bit worried, thinking, is this going to be good?
We were just a bit reticent, weren't we? And that's really only because the kind of the last 2 mainline entries had not been... we just had 6.
Yeah. 100%.
At that point, so it's like,
there wasn't a lot of faith that this would be done well, and that's what gets me. RE2 remake is a gem, and I remember you and me bought it, played it, and we looked at each other and just went, they've done it.
They're actually done it.
They've managed to completely just pull it back. This is incredible. It hits every note, and then they just shit the bed within 12 months again.
Yeah.
Just Capcom is so inconsistent.
It's a shame.
It's so inconsistent. But
enough about that.
Enough about that. So that's one I think is just unforgivably undercooked and very bland.
Yeah, I do enjoy it.
More.
As I say, I do enjoy it, but I have to. I agree 100% with everything you say about it. I'm just not quite as scarred. Wow.
Okay.
The next one is interesting.
So what number is this now?
This is 8th place. This is going to gag. 8th place, Resident Evil 4.
And it was me that dragged it down.
And it was you. I blame you.
Yeah.
For me, this is actually, I can't blame you entirely, because this for me is middle of the pack. I'm not one of these people that thinks it's the best. I don't think it's the worst. It's average for me. You, on the other hand, really don't like it at all.
For me, it's technically the game is great.
It's superb.
It's really good, but the thing I don't like about this is where
it all started
to go wrong.
Yeah.
But I have to say that Resident Evil 4 was a completely necessary game to keep the franchise
in the same way as 7 was.
Because if it didn't, the franchise would have died with Code Veronica.
Absolutely.
We'd have probably got a sort of maybe another middling Code Veronica-like game, and the franchise would have died on its arse.
Yeah.
Let's be real.
It had to move with the times.
It did.
And for what it is, I do enjoy it. I can still play it today, and I can still enjoy it.
Yeah.
It's just not one I enjoy as much as the older one.
I have tried several times to play it, and I've played it and finished it several times. I find it a completely okay experience.
Yeah.
I just don't like it as a Resident Evil game.
I think it's massively overrated.
I think it's hugely overrated. That's one thing I will agree with you on completely.
And I also think very much like 7 and 8, it's a game of two halves.
I think it's, if I remember correctly, I think it's a bit too long.
It is very long. It's like 15 hours, 12 to 15 hours.
Yeah, if you don't like, a long time.
If you don't rush it, then it's a long game.
I think it's too long. I think that's also part of the problem with it for me, is it's just too long.
And I think the last third is just really, really unenjoyable. It's when you start giving the enemies guns, and it all starts turning into Call of Duty / Gears of War.
You can see the RE5 where it bled.
Yeah, into RE5, and it's just like, I don't want this. I want close quarters, zombies creeping around in the darkness. I don't want to be assaulting some military facility with undead things with massive Gatling guns and
But while we're on this subject, I find it very interesting, the rumour, I mean, it might have even been confirmed at this point, that the remake of RE4 is not a remake of RE4. It is Resident Evil 3.5, which was the original version, which was showcased E3, which is an old castle with what looked like ghosts
and these like kind of supernatural element. I mean, it's I don't think they're going to go quite that far.
I don't really want a supernatural one. I'll be honest with you, but I would like to see more of a horror.
Yeah, I mean, the original concept for Resident Evil 4 is what became Devil May Cry.
Yes, it is.
I think Village is probably about as supernatural as it should get.
I agree. I wouldn't want it to be supernatural because I think the thing is, as I said, there's two major horror franchises that everybody knows: Silent Hill and Resident Evil.
Yeah.
Silent Hill is the psychological horror. It's the not the supernatural, but it's very much it's a mind game.
Yeah.
It gets under your skin, and it's a lot about the human psyche, and it's a lot about death and ghosts, and it's a lot about other planes of existence, that kind of thing. A lot about
like parallel dimensions.
100%.
Yeah,
that it goes off on weird tangents. It's like Twin Peaks, and I'm totally okay with it. Resident Evil is a body horror. It's one of those old
tangible.
That's it's a body horror.
Words are hard
because it's a body horror from the things. It's almost like things like the old John Carpenter films, like The Thing. The idea of something that's in your body that's doing awful things to your body, and you lose agency in your body. And the idea of zombies really is terrifying. The idea is that your body's been eaten by a disease. Yeah. And you've lost all sense of agency about your own body, and you're basically a rotten.
It's kind of it's almost like a mutant strain of rabies, isn't it? It's not often how it plays out.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Resident Evil is a body horror. Yeah. So it's a lot of that's the original enemies and stuff. It's not these big bombastic Ouroboros things. It's something that's hideously mutated, like bones have come out at the wrong place, and like look at William. No, I mean in the original games, like the body.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah,
like William Birkin.
Yeah,
something that just keeps
growing
evolving,
extra
like
heads and eyes,
because it just can't stop. You know.
Yeah,
and that's what I think kind of got lost with RE4 onwards, and it's a shame. They pulled it back with 7. I think 7 kind of went back to that.
That's the thing. That's the key.
Yeah, 7 did go back to it being a body horror because 7's just gross. There's so many gross things. I mean, Marguerite Baker's mutant vagina is something that will be
scarred on our minds forever.
Literally, it's living rent-free.
Flies coming out of it.
It's just a rotten, awful thing.
Absolutely unnecessary.
Yeah, but I remember the very first time. I think she just, for all intents and purposes, sat on my face.
Yes.
I was horrified, and he threw the controller at the television. And I was like, I remember getting a message from you actually saying that. Or
is she attacking me with her vagina?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very that.
But yeah, so I think RE4 is objectively a really good game. It's technically very competent. It's also a game of its time. It came out when that cover shooting Gears of War kind of thing was very hot. Yeah. So it made necessary decisions to survive.
Yeah, I appreciate what it is and what it did. And I can see why people think it's the best. I just personally don't think it's the best.
I don't think it's anywhere near the best. For me, that was where I kind of fell off the franchise.
It started to peter out at that point for me. Yeah. For sure.
What had been a blazing adoration, love for this franchise really started to peter off.
Yeah.
With that.
But I am interested and excited to see where they go with the remake. If they are trying to make it, if they are trying to make it more of a horror rather than the action, then I will be very interested in that.
I'm 100% on board for it. If it's just a straight remake of the RE4, we know I probably won't bother with it.
No.
But if they are going to try and add some sort of a flair to it to make
I want it to be more of a reimagining than...
Agreed. And that's what I mean. I think at this point, I don't think you can even really justify remaking RE4 if you're not going to do that, because
it's too new.
Many versions of this fucking game exist on how many platforms?
know.
Just...
But the thing is, they've never really updated it. That's the shame of it, is that with a decent remaster, they could have really kind of done something with it, but it's always been very bare bones ports.
But it is just it's also too new. I mean, it's like I said, I know it is, it's an old game now, I suppose, but equally, I'm like, there's other more deserving games of a remake at this point than RE4. So if they're going to do it...
We wanted Code Veronica first,
Yes, that's the one I would want. If we're going to remake any other games at this point, it's Code Veronica.
It's a shame.
Yeah.
They are.
I'm totally on board for the 3.5 remake, if that's what people are calling it.
Yeah.
So, again, this is a controversial one. I think it's because it seems to me that a lot of people who find this to be their favourite, this is where they join the franchise.
Exactly. That's the difference.
That's what's key.
That's what's doing it. And they have that nostalgia for 4 because it was their first or maybe the second that they played.
Yeah.
And they just hold it, they hold reverence for it in the same way that we do for 2 and 3.
100%.
You know.
And that's fine. That's great.
Absolutely.
But it's, for me, it was...
No judgment. No judgment.
For me, it was a turning point where things... To me, it was the beginning of things going very wrong for a good few years.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. Moving
next on the list. Oh, I'm kind of sad about that.
What is it?
It's the OG Resident Evil 1.
Oh, no. I think this is... I know what you mean, and I know, but this one kind of rose like a phoenix from its own ashes. It's a game that I think... I'm happy for it to kind of be lying in its grave because a better version of it now exists.
Yeah, but on the same token, I could still quite happily play Resident Evil 2, the OG, and 3.
Agreed.
And I still enjoy the remakes, and I appreciate the remakes, and I appreciate, particularly in the case of 2, that the remake is superior.
Yes.
Not the case with 3.
Yeah.
But I can still play the original Resident Evil 2 to death.
Well, I don't think this game is unplayable. I played it on the Vita. About a year or so ago last.
I don't think I could bring myself now.
I don't think it's aged. It's aged
horrendously.
Yeah,
badly.
It has, and I think the thing with this one is it's the spark that starts the fire.
Yeah, it laid the groundwork.
It laid the groundwork for what came later, and it also still has some of the most iconic fan favorite characters in the franchise in it. So it really is the beginning of something great. So I think the latter version of it, I think, is just dynamite. So I'm not sad that this is lower on the list. I think it's just been surpassed by
everything that came after it, pretty much.
And we owe the franchise's existence to it. And there are moments in this game that are truly gold. They're cultural, they're emblazoned on the minds of everyone who was old enough to play it.
But I do think that most of those moments are the camp, cheesy, like the terrible dialogue.
Oh, which was the dogs coming through the window. But to be fair, though, that was voted one of the scariest moments in gaming for years, because at the time you did shit a brick.
Yeah.
When they came flying through the window at you, it was fucking scary.
It was.
There was nothing like it at the time. There was nothing else like it. Was this the original survival horror game?
No. I think...
Or was it just the one that kind of caught on?
Well, Resident Evil was kind of a take on another game. What was it called? Something Home?
I can't remember.
It was like an Amiga game or something. I can't remember what it was called. Sweet Home.
Sweet Home, okay.
It was on like the Amiga or the Commodore or something like that, I think.
Okay, so it's probably quite an obscure title, I would say, yeah.
But I believe that the original Clock Tower actually precedes the original Resident Evil. I might be wrong.
I think they're
Alone in the Dark definitely does.
Yeah, Alone in the Dark definitely does. No, you're right. But I suppose in the sense of this, it's definitely the one that captured the public consciousness.
That's the thing. I think it redefined the genre and it made it accessible to a lot more people.
Yeah. But the thing I still love about these games now, and it's something you just don't get anymore, and it's the same with RE2, it was completely possible to fuck yourself into a corner with this.
Absolutely.
And you couldn't continue.
No. You would use up all your ammo.
All your ammo.
All your health items.
Shit creek, and there'd be nothing you could do.
And you physically couldn't kill the next boss.
You'd have to restart the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the thing. And I think this, and then Silent Hill is Konami's answer to... They wanted to make a competitor to Resident Evil. Those games, to this day, I've probably noticed it with you as well. I don't know if I think I'm probably worse for it than you are. When I'm playing games now, to this day, I am an absolute fucking hoarder.
Yes.
I will try not to use a lot of ammo. I'll try not to use a lot of health items. No. I'll try to keep things very frugal. And it's because of these games.
But then you get to the end of the game and you're absolutely... You've got so much light artillery in your handbag.
So much crap. And I'm like, okay, cool. And the other thing as well is the tension that this game created by having saves being dependent on item picker.
Yeah.
You couldn't just pause the game and save.
Save limit. No, that's it. You can only save in certain places and with certain consumable items that, again, could run out.
Yeah, and that's what I love about this, is it actually, when you look at it in these terms, it's such a seminal game. Yeah. Things really shifted at this point in gaming. It was this, Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah.
And what was the other one?
Tomb Raider?
Probably Tomb Raider, yeah. There's kind of core original PlayStation franchise.
Certainly in terms of kind of like action-adventure games.
Yes.
Those were like the three key. They were all different.
Yeah.
They all brought their own thing, but they were like that was.
And it's like, okay, this is the next generation of gaming.
Yeah.
Is what this was. And like I said, those were the real formative games for you and me when we were growing up. And you can still see the way we played these games in how we play games now.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. It was a foundation. If that jump from the platformers on the Sega Mega Drive to these kinds of games, and these were the games that we grew up with, really, and these were the ones that really shaped us, I think, and that's to say. Yeah. So I love this game. I know it hasn't aged well, and I know that it's probably quite difficult to play. It is.
Yeah.
But I still really love this game.
I love it for what it is. I love it for what it is and what it did and what it represents.
Yeah.
It's a really important game that I would just never choose to play again.
It's one definitely that I like to watch. I love to watch the speedrunners do it. I like to watch people just do a long play of it.
I just find it painful to play myself now.
Yeah, but it does have some great moments though. You've got the Itchy Tasty, which is just that zombie then coming out of that cupboard behind you.
Yeah.
I remember finding this game genuinely scary when I was a kid. It really scared the shit out of me when I was a kid.
Yeah.
There's so many moments in it. For me, it's that moment when that very first zombie turns round and looks at you. That white face covered with blood around its mouth haunted my nightmares for years as a kid. Scared the shit out of me. But I was hooked.
Yeah.
Couldn't stop playing it. And also, if we're going to throw it in there, the director's cut soundtrack is
my lord. Now, we have to be specific about this because I believe it's only the US version of the director's cut.
DualShock version of it, is it?
The American DualShock version of the director's cut. This is very confusing. But there's one specific version of the game, which you can find out on Google because we're probably wrong. One specific version of the game where basically Capcom commissioned an entirely new soundtrack to be made. And it's actually a really wild story because I think the composer turned out to not be the composer. Like he'd got someone else to do it.
Yeah.
Who had never composed a thing in their life.
No.
And then he kind of capitalized on that person's work.
Yeah.
But the soundtrack is probably one of the worst things that has ever penetrated my ears.
Agreed.
Are you finding it to play it?
I am. So this is a moment where you go into the basement of the mansion, and it's
where
supposed
the
to be
grotty kitchen is.
Yes, and you find 2 or 3 zombies chewing on a corpse. It's it should be quite a frightening moment.
Yes,
and this is what happens.
What were they thinking?
It's just playing arse trumpets, isn't it? That's the only way I can describe it. It's just so utterly bizarre.
What I don't understand this for a variety of reasons, because the original soundtrack is nothing. It's nothing special, but it was significantly better than that.
Oh, 100%. I'm not sure why they thought it needed a new soundtrack. I'm not going to lie.
But the fact that they got that guy to do it, whoever actually made... it's actually a really interesting story. If you go and Google Resident Evil Director's Cut soundtrack...
There's a huge rabbit hole you can go down with this, because it's mental.
It's a really, really interesting story, and I don't think anyone really knows
That's
exactly
what I mean. There's a lot of myth about it.
I just can't understand, why they commissioned a new soundtrack, why it was only used on that version of the game specifically.
And thank God it was.
And why they actually thought it was good enough.
I mean, who quality tested this?
Fuck knows.
Because you'd think anybody would have kind of just gone, we've played the game. I've got some questions. The basement. The basement is
the whole soundtrack is garbage.
It's terrible. It's garbage.
It's not just that piece.
No,
it's the entire
but that's the particular
standout
moment.
Yeah.
I mean, there's like I said, there's a guy on the floor. There's 3 zombies chomping on him. It should be a really scary moment. And then that just starts farting through your speakers. It's just
no.
But yes, Resident Evil, I think, I understand why it's low down.
I actually thought it would be lower than that.
I thought it might be too. I'm not gutted about it, but it's a real piece of zeitgeist, I think.
Yeah.
Everything about it is it's absolutely of its time, and I still have a lot of love for the
I love it. I love it for what it is and what it represents, but yes. I wouldn't play it again if you paid me.
It's difficult to play, I won't.
Yeah. So, we're not quite halfway, but we've already been talking for an hour.
I know.
So I think we might have to cut it here.
Ooh, that's cruel. That's cruel.
Into the second part.
Yes, so the second part of this, the tangents will go. There'll be so much. It'll be like Mass Effect episode all over again. So we really have to rein ourselves in. But yeah, I think it was a good note to end on because it's a good segue into the good stuff.
Yeah, we've kind of had the stuff that we really aren't struck on, and now it's like these are the ones that we really, really like. Yeah. So yes, stay tuned for that.
Indeed, as I say again, you can find us on all the major socials.
Yep, all the major social networks, Gen and Fen Pod, and everywhere good podcasts are hawked.
Yes.
We are there.
Absolutely that. So yeah, thank you everybody, and we will be back soon.
Yeah, see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.